All right, I believe we are live. Hello, Arty Peoples, and welcome to another episode of Jerry's Live. My name is Emmy Klein, and I am your host this evening. And as you can see, we have a guest on today with us. This is Stacy Rosende with Golden Education, and I'm so excited for the show you have planned for us. It's going to be amazing. So before I officially hand it off to you, Stacy, make sure you guys go to the website, jerrysartorama.com, and type in today's class code, which is JL268. And when you type that into the search bar, the teacher's cart should come up with all the things that Stacy is going to be showing us today. And without further ado, Stacy, take it away.
Thank you, Emmy. Welcome, everybody. Tonight, I'm thrilled to be with you here on the Jerry's channel. We are going to go through a series of demonstrations to share with you the attributes and the sort of possibilities with our high flow paint line. But it's going to be pretty exciting. We're going to pull out some tools. We're going to show you some tricks. First, I'm going to contextualize that with our current paint line so you can see the difference, how this product is different from maybe what you're used to with maybe say a heavy body. Then we'll get into mediums and how it all works together. And then we have some exciting new colors to share with you. We're going to unpack that for you. And at the very end, we have a little special surprise. It's night here in upstate New York. And let me just drop a clue and tell you that we have the black lights out. So, okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the demos. All right, thanks, Todd. So very quickly, I'm just going to show you how our high flow paint line fits within our Golden family. So you might be used to our Golden heavy body acrylic. This is our most popular paint line. As you can see, it's nice and thick and viscous. You can paint it nice and flat, or you can leave those brush strokes and it'll retain those. It's very thick. Comes in a tube or a jar. This is our most popular paint line. It was our first as well. So this may be what you're most familiar with. We also have our Open, which is a slow drying acrylic. You can tell by the tube, it has this black sort of suit on, and it says Open across here. It just has more open time. It's been designed that way. Very different viscosity. It's really soft. When you take a look here, you can see that. We're showing you this all in the same color. It's the Naphthol Red light, which we have across all paint lines here. So I think that's really wonderful for you to see the same pigment in these different binders. So that's our Open. The next one I'm showing you in range, I'm actually doing this in sort of a viscosity range. So from thicker to the thinnest, which is our high flow at the end. But our So Flat is our matte acrylic. It's leveling, and you see minimal brush strokes. I think depending on your substrate, sometimes if you have a very absorbent substrate, you will see some brush strokes, but it really dries down to a super, super flat finish, why we call it So Flat. And here, I'm going to show you this. This pigment tends to be glossy typically, but in So Flat, it's super matte. And that gives the illusion that you're not seeing any brush strokes. Even if there are some there, you don't see them visually because the light does not hit any of those peaks. It's just so flat. But it is a bit more viscous than the high flow itself. So this is, got a little bit of body. It wants to relax and level. Beautiful paint. We don't typically control the sheen of our paint. We let the binder and the pigment lead the way, with the exception of So Flat. So you'll notice that these are glossy, and that's because the pigment just is glossy in the binder naturally. The only one we alter is that So Flat. As we come down the line here, we have our Fluid. This is our Fluid in the same color. And finally, the thinnest paint that we have is the high flow. Now, it's not thin because we added water to the heavy body. It's thin because we have a different binder. The binder is holding still the most pigment that binder can hold while being a stable paint. So I just want you to be aware of that. We didn't water it down. It's still fully loaded. I'm going to paint these out in just a moment here to show you the difference between a Fluid and our high flow. And while I shake this, which you should do with high flow, but not with Fluid, high flow is so thin that our pigments actually can settle. So we put a little ball in here, and it'll when you shake it, you mix it up. You do not need to shake your fluids because it'll just add air into the paint, which is not necessary for your other paints, just high flow. So while I do this, I want to tell you that in the comments in the chat, we have someone from Golden, a materials specialist, there answering any technical questions. So if there's anything I go over and you want to know right away the answer to your question, Mike is there, one of our materials specialists, to answer those questions. And he's very experienced with high flow. So he'll be great.
Oh yeah, I've already seen him in the chats there.
That's awesome. Great. Thanks.
People are a little confused as to whether or not we're live or if this is pre-recorded because I've been gone for my residency for a minute, but we're officially live. We are back, guys.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, we're here live. And Emmy can ask me some questions too. Emmy, anytime you want to interrupt. Okay, so let's do this. So here's the fluid. And I'm going to go ahead and put some of the fluid down here on this little panel. This is dry, this is wet. You can see there's a little bit of a difference, but not much. And then about the same amount with the high flow. See those little bubbles coming out? That's because I just shook it. That can settle down.
They pop pretty easily.
Yeah, they do. And actually a little trick, just FYI, if I really need to pop those bubbles, I can take a little isopropyl alcohol and just go spray and they're gone.
Oh, learning.
So I'm going to tilt this up and you can see how quickly that high flow runs down the panel. So this acrylic paint will behave a lot like an ink. Some folks call them acrylic inks, but it's an acrylic paint with all the benefits of acrylic paint. The binder is going to have the same kind of longevity and permanence, and I say that in air quotes because, you know, nothing is really permanent, but of, say, your heavy body. Okay, so there's a real benefit to this. It's much more durable than many inks. It's got pigments and not dyes. So we'll walk through what those attributes look like and how to use it, because it's really an exciting product. Okay, so I'm going to switch these over and grab some more and talk about mediums and extension and all of that. While I do that, were there any quick questions before I move to the next thing?
Actually request one last time. Can you go through each one and say what type of paint each one is again real fast?
Yeah, no problem.
Perfect.
So this one is heavy body, which is your classic golden in the tube paint, our first one. Then we have open, which is our slow drying acrylic. Great if you want more time before that starts to dry, gives you plenty of working time. So flat, which is our matte acrylic, leveling and a very, very reduced sheen. You see the super matte. This is our fluid, comes in a bottle like this. And this is our high flow. And the high flow, you'll see, it says high flow on the side, and it has this nozzle on the top. Okay, all of our paints have a hand-painted swatch. So if you're not sure if the paint in the tube is going to be opaque or transparent or glossy or matte, you can take a look at that hand-painted swatch, and it gives you all that information right up front. All right, great. Moving on. So, whoops. I'm going to do a little demo here really quickly. One of the really wonderful things about having different paints on your palette, meaning different viscosities of paint, is, you know, in the golden line, they're all intermixable. So I can take a heavy body and I can take my high flow and I can mix the two to create a range of viscosities using that same, those two different paint lines, but with the same color. So I don't see an interruption in my color or my saturation. I just have a change in viscosity. And again, like if you had just shaked your high flow and you don't want those little bubbles, I showed you that little trick with the alcohol. I could have done that here and it would have gotten rid of them. Another thing you can do is we have, for each paint line, we have direct extenders. So that's a medium that can take the paint, not change the viscosity of the paint, but extend it. So they're so highly pigmented that you could save yourself a little money sometimes, depending on your need, by extending your paint. So, you know, you get that super concentrated paint in the container. You don't have to always use it in the super concentrated state. You can actually extend it with the medium, and you can also use this to glaze. High flow actually is a little slower drying too than some of the other paints that we make, with the exception of open. So it gives you a little bit more working time. So if I had heavy body and I wanted to extend my heavy body, change its viscosity, and maybe have a little bit more working time, I could use my high flow medium with my heavy body. So I'm going to show you that now, as well as extend my my paint, my high flow paint. So here's an example. I'm going to take my heavy body and just paint that out. This is the viscosity of the heavy body on its own. I could take my heavy body this way and mix it with my high flow and not lose any of that saturation. Okay, just change the viscosity of the paint. So now I've created a range of viscosities, thickness and thinness, from the very fluid high flow all the way to the very viscous and thicker heavy body. So that's one way. I could also take this heavy body with this high flow medium and continue to extend that out. I could even glaze with it. It all works together. If I have my high flow paint and I just want to extend the paint, I can continue to use that medium to do that. And I could even extend it as far as creating a glaze with that. Okay, so it's all mixable. So my mediums will work to change the viscosity, or I could actually maintain the viscosity and then just, lower the pigment load based on the amount of medium that I add. Does that make sense?
It does.
Super duper. I also have another example here. This is kind of repeating the same concept, but in this example, I actually took the heavy body and created a wash with it with just water. You can add water to your acrylic paint. That's fine. What can happen after a certain point is if you reduce the amount of binder in the paint to where it's, very, very, your pigment particles are very spread out and it's a very dilute wash, you can just experience a little color lift. But if you want to make sure that you're not getting that effect, you can actually go in and add medium. You can add medium to your water, or you can just use a medium to glaze with. With the medium, you'll notice, Todd, if you could go back above, with the medium, let's see if I can get this on here where you can see it.
Oh yeah, there's a shine.
Yep, you see it? So
Yep.
with the medium, you're going to have a little shiny bit. That's the binder. Whereas down here with the water, it's super flat, right?
Now, what is the level of what water to the paint ratio that you can get to without having that adhesion issue?
It's not well, it's sort of an adhesion issue. Yeah. So it depends. We have a wonderful article that actually Mike can drop in the chat that actually breaks that down. The dilution is much more extreme than you would think. I know that some folks feel like you can't go beyond like 10% or 20%. You can actually stretch that pretty far. So Mike can drop that article in the chat for you guys. It's a great question. We get it all the time. Again, if I'm going to continue to paint on this though, each paint layer I add, if I add any binder back in, that should lock everything down. So if I did a really dilute wash and then I came over it and did glazes with binder, I should be good to go. It might lift a little in those glazes if it's very dilute. And you might get some of that pigment coming in there, but it's not going to continue to lift after that. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about medium. So I can continue this thinking about the fact that this high flow can be mixed. It doesn't have to stay an inky like flat paint on my palette. I can use it in that way. So here's just a little drop of the high flow next to the high flow medium, but I can actually use the high flow with some of our really thick gels and paste as well. So this is an example of high flow, and I really use these ratios. There's just a teeny little bit of the light molding paste and a drop of the high flow, and you can see how pigmented that is. It's still very rich. So that's the light molding paste with the high flow. And then this is a regular gel gloss with the high flow as well. So then I can start to play with textures and sheens with it as well. And I use very little paint with that. So that was a lot of fun. And I have another example to show you with this. And we'll do some mixing here. So as I get that ready, were there any questions, Emmy?
Oh, I was going to say, you are going to actually mix the two of them on camera, because that's a lot of the questions is like, how well does it mix together? And then I have another few questions that are, I feel like you're going to get to them later on in the demonstration, so I'm going to save those for later.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so yeah, so here's our light molding paste. It looks kind of like frosting. It's really, really pretty, nice texture.
Don't eat it. It's
Yeah,
not
don't
good.
eat it.
It
Yeah,
doesn't taste good.
looks like frosting, does not taste like frosting. Okay, so here's my high flow, and I'm just going to put a little tiny drop or two there in the light molding paste, and you can see right away how that color starts to incorporate. Now with the light molding paste, it has a slight tinting effect because the product is actually white-ish. This will darken a little bit upon drying, but it will still have that tinting effect. You can see that here.
So if you wanted a really, really vibrant red, you just have to add a little bit more.
Yep, just like this.
Nice.
Or you could put the light molding paste down first and paint over it and stain into it, which I'm going to show you here in just 1 second.
Very, very true.
Right, so there you go. Much deeper color. Now, if I used a glossier gel, if I mixed it now, it would look white, but when it dried and it clarified, it would be a really dark color. Nice and deep. It'd look like this red out of the container. It's just the tinting effect of that light molding paste. So here's an example with a little drop of the red. I used about that much light molding paste, sort of like we did here. This is just a little swipe of that and here, but then I took the ultramarine blue high flow and some water and did a wash over this. So you can see over here where the pigment is more saturated, and then where I added the water. And this beautiful effect in here comes from the porosity and the texture of the light molding paste, picking up those little pigment particles and binder of that dilute high flow. So you can really, work this into your textures and your layers of your painting thin over thick in ways that you couldn't do with, say, traditional oils. So this gives you some pretty interesting opportunities. All right.
So pretty.
So pretty, right?
Every time you guys come on here, I'm just like, I want to play with this stuff, but I can't reach through the computer.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to play with some stuff, and I can have some fun, and you can watch, and then maybe later you can.
I will be going home and being like, okay, our slides.
All right, so I have here a piece of just a page protector. It's a piece of plastic, and I'm going to actually slide this out of here. And this plastic is you should test at home. It's polyethylene. Do I have that right, Mike? I feel like I'm doubting myself. Mike can check me in the chat. So if you're not sure of what plastics you have, the best thing to do, and I've even used garbage bags, is if you want to make what we're looking at here is an acrylic skin. An acrylic skin is a free film of acrylic, and we're going to do one of these together here in just a second. This can be collaged into your painting just like a brush mark of paint. It's just paint. To create something like this, you just need a piece of plastic that the acrylic will not stick to. There's certain types of plastics the acrylic love and will stick to, like acrylic sheeting, like plexiglass. And then there's other types of plastics that the acrylic will not stick to. And, it's best to just do a test. I've had grocery bags that I've used and, shopping bags, and this is a page protector. Most of the time, these little page protectors from the office supply store are made of the types of plastics that the acrylics will not bind to, but every once in a while we've come across some that in fact the acrylics will bind to. So just do a little test at home, and if you find that the acrylic peels off, you're good to go. And this little skin, which looks like a jewel, was made just with high flow and clear tar gel. So I'm going to show you what that looks like wet. And then I'm going to pull this up and we can ooh and ah at it because it's so pretty. So here I have, this is what clear tar gel looks like. Whoops. You go on up to the above. There you go. It's super resinous. You can see I'm pulling it. It looks like syrup. So I'm just going to put this down like this. And that clear tar gel will dry to this really flexible, clear film like we have on the other side. So I'm just going to knife that out.
How fun.
And yeah, and just do a few drops of color in there. And, you know, just to show you how this looks while it's wet. Whoops, too much came out. I'm going to take an iridescent color, drop it in there as well. And this is one of our new colors that you guys will see in a minute. There we go. I did something along these lines to create this skin. Just drug my knife. This is a very dirty knife. Just drug my knife right through it. Just had some fun. So when that's set up and dried, we got something like this. You'll notice that the pigment kind of splits and does these fun things. When I hold this in my hand, you can see how it separates. There you go. Has these beautiful effects. This has to do with, you know, some of the pigment densities in that that high flow and how it's interacting with this film. It's really quite beautiful. So I can take this and collage it right into my painting. So it's a lot of fun playing with your different mediums and gels with the high flow. It's going to have its own sort of unique set of behaviors. It's a good place to play. And we also have, you know, high flow does really well on a lot of different textured grounds and pastes. So when you're thinking about setting up a painting, the high flow just plays so beautifully through these textures. Thank you. So I'm going to do some stains on here. This is our coarse pumice gel. Coarse pumice gel. This right here is crackle paste. The second one is crackle paste. And then the last one is the same material that I just mixed with the naphthol red, which is our light molding paste. Each one has a different texture and absorbency, and you can see the difference in the material, how it interacts with that. And since this goes on like an ink, it'll get into all those little crevices and create these beautiful textures. So I'm going to stick with that naphthol red that I had before. Here we go. And I'll put it on. I'm just going to put it right on the panel so you can see how this goes.
You can see the cracks from that crackle paste already.
Right away, right? You see that starting to work in there? Now I could use my high flow medium. I'm going to add high flow medium on this side here to try to extend that. And I'm adding binder into it. Now this is going to be white because it's a medium. And what it's going to do is it's going to get down in those cracks, but it's going to behave really differently than if I had water. Let me show you what water does. So I'm going to grab some water here. And now I'm going to treat this a little bit more like a watercolor. Water's not as viscous. It's going to be a little thinner.
Can you push that up just a little bit?
Oh, sorry. Yes, yes, yes.
No,
Thank you, Emmy.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I'm
Great.
having a hard time seeing.
So you can see this really starts to pull.
Mm-hmm.
And I can even take a spray bottle.
Ooh.
And as that sits, that's going to get into all those little cracks. Now, like I said before, I can add binder to my water if I want to make sure that locks down. You can get these really beautiful effects. And as that sets in and it has time to dry and the binder, you know, the acrylic binder is white. So as it dries, it clarifies and your colors deepen. And in some cases lighten. But as that binder dries and clarifies, you're going to start to get, you know, an effect where you really see that color sinking into all those little grooves and cracks. Okay.
Now, I feel like also because the grounds that you're using in that are so absorbent, it's really going to grab onto that pigment too. So you probably get less of that lifting a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that lifting really, you'd have to dilute it quite a bit. And I had put a lot of binder in here and then saturated the whole thing. So just lighten this spot so you can see it. There you go.
Nice.
Really nice.
Pretty.
All right. So any questions about this stuff, Emmy, before I jump into the next section? We're going to talk about all these new colors. We're going to get into all these tools. We're just going to keep going.
Now, I do have some questions that were actually relating to the acrylic skin that you had just made
I
prior to
thought you
that.
might. Yeah, okay. What's up?
So somebody was asking, can it be cut into shapes?
Yes, it can.
And
Yes,
the
it
other
can.
question I had, scissors. I was gonna say, what is the best tool, I guess, really to do so?
It depends. This one's not very thick, so I can just use scissors. I think if it's a thicker skin, it's going to be harder to cut. You can use an X-Acto knife or box cutter if you're very careful.
Yeah,
Take
like
care.
a self-healing cutting mat or something would probably be
Right.
a little easier. And then the other question is, how do you stick it onto like a canvas or paper, or I guess whatever substrate you're using?
I'll show you real quick.
Perfect.
You can wing it. So, great question, and it's super easy to do. You just need, I can use paint, I can use medium. I'll go ahead and use this clear tar gel. That'll work.
Mhm.
Acrylic has a binder in it. That binder can act as an adhesive. I think probably the only one you would not want to use is an open or slow drying product, because it just takes too long to dry.
Yeah.
I can take this material, put it right down over my, granted that's wet, you'd probably want to let it dry first. And just set it right in. And once you set it in, let it dry, you should be good to go, because that's going to act as a glue. And down here with this high flow, I could actually just stick this right in that paint.
Mm-hmm. That's acrylics tend to really just want to grab onto acrylics. That's why you don't put
That's right.
acrylic paintings face to face. That just is bad news bears.
Okay, and I'm going to show you one more thing you don't want to do, because you're right, because acrylics do love acrylics. You don't want to take your skins and do this, because they're going to stick to each other. You want to keep that plastic that you determine is not going to stick to your acrylics between them when you store them. Now I'm pulling this apart, but it's only because I'm lucky right now. There's a good chance that that would not have happened.
Yep.
Probably a better chance not than did.
The other question is, does it stick to glass?
It'll stick to glass. Will it bind to glass? That's another story. I mean, it'll stick to glass pretty. You might have to scrape it off. Is it a permanent? We don't say that acrylic sticks to glass permanently. I mean, you can improve the adhesion different ways, but ultimately, glass is not the best substrate for acrylics. So Mike can expand on that in the chat, but it's like we talk about acrylics on glass as more of a decorative application that is not necessarily permanent, but there's ways to improve that adhesion. And we actually have an article coming out probably next month or later this month on that, how to do that. So
yeah, I think people were honestly in the chats thinking about it more like decorations for the windows. You
can
know,
do window clings with this, absolutely. Just know that you might have to get a scraper to get it off. Yeah, we've had some that took a lot of muscle to get off. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I mean, another option would be to maybe put it into a picture frame.
I think that'd be better.
The backer on it, and somehow like secure that in there, and then hang that in your window.
Right. Or plexiglass, because something like that, the acrylic will bind to, and then it becomes a substrate. Yep, absolutely. Well, that was fun diversion. I loved answering those questions. That's good. Okay, wonderful. So the next thing we're going to get into is, I just want to show you a little demonstration board we have, just showing you the possibilities with high flow and tools. And then I'm going to really get into that. As we do that, I'm going to unpack our new colors. So we have a lot to talk about. Super good. Yeah, I'm really excited to get into these new colors, because I had a lot of fun setting this demo up, and now I get to share. So high flow, we have some different applications here just to talk about, and then we'll demonstrate. So high flow, we have does beautiful staining. So this is on a fabric. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but this is high flow on fabric. Beautiful staining capabilities, really saturated, pretty effect. So we'll talk about that in a minute. There you go. Thanks, Todd. And then this is on an absorbent ground, an absorbent surface, and it's used as almost like a watercolor. So we're using it, dilute a little bit on that absorbent surface. It really pulls that pigment into the surface. Really nice effect. It's beautiful for lettering. A lot of calligraphers love it because it's a more permanent application. So we have some pen examples that we'll show you here in a little bit. We have stained wood. I mean, you can use it. This is a veneer that's been stained with the acrylics. Also airbrush. It's amazing in an airbrush because it has those slower, it has a slower drying attribute. We did that on purpose, so you could just put it right into an airbrush. We used to have airbrush colors, and that was very niche. And this actually opens up the possibility for all of these different applications and airbrush. So it's great. So let's go ahead and talk about the new colors.
And this actually, this does pertain to that question that I was holding on to, because somebody was asking about using high flow on watercolor paper or like a mixed media paper.
Yeah, no, it's great. If it's anything that acrylics will bind to, you're good to go. So paper, the only thing to consider is when you have a lot of water in a paper, what it does to the paper, but that's not any different with acrylic than it would be with watercolor. So just consider that. So it might get wompy or bumpy. But yeah, paper's great. Canvas, you can use panel, like I was just using that ampersand panel a minute ago. You can use plexiglass, you can use Duralar. We're going to talk about that. That's a polyester. It works on that. So polyester fabrics, there's a lot of options there. And we have extensive articles in our Just Paint newsletter, which is our blog, that go over different substrates. So I would recommend if someone really wanted to explore that breadth of substrates that work with acrylics, to visit that site and take a look. Okay.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So let's go ahead and unpack those new colors, Todd.
I'm so excited for this. Ooh.
All right, so we have 37 new colors. That's a lot. And they range from a series of light value colors, which are tints, which are super, super convenient if you're doing any, anything, but it's super great for pen work. And I'll show some of that in a minute. I did some fine line work with that to show you airbrushing. I mean, instead of having to mix them, you just put them right in the airbrush and go. It's just terrific. We've got some iridescent and interference colors. And then we filled out the palette with some other things that we're missing, like phthalo green yellow shade. That's super popular. We've got some primaries. So we're going to go through it. The whole high flow line now is 86 colors. That's amazing. So you can see it there on screen. We are going to start actually with some historic colors. So historic colors were developed to take the place of maybe some more vulnerable pigments, that were made from berries and plants that, didn't have the sort of hardy light fastness that we expect now from modern paints. So we went ahead and created hues to match those color spaces of some of those more traditional plant-based and maybe vulnerable pigments. So we have a Prussian blue hue that we've added, Viridian green hue, and an India yellow. And then I have them painted out here already, dry. You can see how rich and pretty those are. Really lovely.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and this is such a great glazer, isn't it? India yellow.
Oh, it really is. So all three of those colors are just yummy is the only term I can ever think of when I'm thinking of colors like that. I'm just like, oh, they're so pretty.
Yeah, and high flow does this really beautiful thing too, where it can sometimes get these blooms, like the stuff that excites you about watercolor. High flow can do that too sometimes, especially when you add a little water. It can be very, really lovely. So here's a little mark I made with this Sumi, traditional calligraphy brush. Works great with high flow because of its viscosity. So what I'm going to do here is just demonstrate how this paint behaves on watercolor paper, and then also stain some cloth here. And this cloth actually this canvas was prepared with a little bit of the clear tar gel ahead of time, so it's dry, and you can actually use gels or mediums as a resist. So this will be a nice little technique to share with you. Now, instead of getting a palette out. I'm just going to put a few drops and spread it around and do some dilutions just to show you these colors. So this is the Viridian, and it'll give you a sense of how it works on watercolor paper. The Prussian, which I have here as a dry mark, and then the India yellow. Okay, get these guys out of the way. I have this nice big brush and this brush here. First, going to start with this. Added some water to the brush just to give you a sense of how, it can work almost like a watercolor on watercolor paper.
But
and you
that
can
will,
see,
once it's dry, once it's dry, it's not going to reactivate like a watercolor would.
correct, because this is all acrylic, right? So that is the benefit of using this instead of watercolor, is that permanence. There's that beautiful India yellow. You can see how bright that undertone is.
Mm-hmm.
And I can keep going. You see how pigmented this is. I had very little paint, and there's still a lot of it left here. So as I'm pulling it across the surface, it's really going to go far. And this is that Viridian hue. Beautiful kind of jade looking green. So you can see how it gets that softness with the water. It has that very pretty washy effect. But again, this is an acrylic. So it's going to bind like an acrylic. Okay, so let's go ahead and play now on this surface. This is the canvas. There's nothing on here. This is just raw canvas. And I'm going to use that same color family. And I'm just going to put it right in. You just see it's going to want to go right into the canvas, because it's absorbent. There's nothing on it. There's no gesso. It's just right into that canvas. But I'm going to take my brush. I could use medium, or I could use a little water. Since my brush is already wet, I'm just going to go ahead and pull it with a little water. So I'm going to start with the India yellow, and I'm going to pull it across here. You can see how it goes right into the fabric. Just soaks right in. And again, I can take a little water. It's okay. I'm not using a ton. There we go. I'm going to do the Viridian next. You see how the clear tar gel is acting as a resist.
Mm-hmm.
You can even wipe that in. Now this wants to sink right into that cloth. So it's really going to be effective for staining.
Oh, wow. So when that dries, is the canvas going to remain kind of stiff, like an acrylic is on there, or will it remain kind of almost flexible?
It will stiffen up because you have that acrylic binder in there, but it won't be as stiff as like a heavy body.
Okay.
And if I dilute this quite a bit, it's going to be a little less stiff.
Mm-hmm.
High flow, if you were thinking about doing this on something you'd wear, Mike, our material specialist who's in the chat, just did some research on acrylics on wearable fabrics, and utilizing high flow was one of the tests that they did. It's not the greatest. It doesn't launder that well. But I mean, if you're doing textile art, I mean, if you're doing high flow on a wearable and you're okay with it looking all stained, and if it fades a little bit, you'll be fine. It's not going to be super, super vibrant after many trips through the laundry.
Yeah.
But it'll stay in the fabric, so Mike can maybe link to that. But as a textile artist, someone who's just trying to utilize this in their artwork, or stain fabrics for installation, it's beautiful. Light fast pigments in here. It's just great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I definitely had a friend of mine recently doing the staining and weaving it back through after ripping it apart, and it was lovely. And that's why I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I kind of overdid it here. And you saw me pulling it off. I put way too much paint. You don't even need to use that much paint.
Now the clear tar gel, would you be able to get that off, or is that like fuse on for life?
No, I mean, that's in there. That's it. That's part of the piece now. Yeah, it's not working as it's it's resisting, but it's not a mask. It's not something you can peel off.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, this is part of the work. But, if I wanted to have, a color underneath and then have an area that resists, that maintains that color as I'm building layers in a painting, I could do clear tar gel again and do a light value color on top and have these darker tones underneath. So you can start to work almost by reserving spaces with that resist backwards a little bit.
How fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's good stuff. All right, so let's keep going. I have some drawing tools. I really can't wait to go over this with you. I had so much fun. I tested so many different things, and I'm going to show them all to you. This really opens up possibilities. If you think about, traditional painting, it's you're kind of relegated to drawing kind of being at the bottom layer of the painting. And now with acrylics being compatible in this way, I don't have to worry about thick over thin or fat over lean. I can work drawing instruments and drawing mark making in the final layers of my acrylic paintings. So I can really, flip that logic, that sort of traditional logic when working in this way. So all these tools that I'm going to show you could potentially be something that you do throughout any point of your painting in your paint layers. So I have a bunch of goodies to show you here, and I'm going to be using our light value colors for this. So Todd, do you have the light value? So we have those 9 light value colors that are coming out. Those are those tints, and they're just, varying degrees of saturation, but they're absolutely beautiful. And the one that I have here is the light magenta, which on the screen looks a little darker. Well, it's pretty dark than what I'm seeing here under the light. But I have a ruling pen, I have a calligraphy pen, a bamboo reed, some refillable markers, a liner brush, a drawing nib here, which is like a mapping kind of nib, and a fine line applicator. So all of these will work. So let's go ahead and match these lines. I think what I'll do just for the demo is I'll actually use, I'm going to use this, the light magenta. There we go. I was going to switch it up, but then I realized I had these tools already set up for light magenta. So I'll show you how these work. And hopefully this will get your creative mind thinking about those paint layers. Just, it could be so different than maybe traditional approaches. So this is a ruling pen. And the ruling pen's an odd little guy. It's got that sort of gap that holds the paint. And I'm actually making these marks on Duralar matte. Like I said before, this is a substrate that actually acrylics do really well on. Duralar is a polyester, and that polyester will hold the acrylics pretty well. So it'll bind nicely to the polyester. Other types of plastic papers, not so much. We have an article on that. Thanks, Todd. That maybe our material specialist can share in the chat. This is a calligraphy pen. So, you just dip it in there like you would if it were in ink. And I'm not a calligrapher, so I'm not going to play one on TV.
I can't, my handwriting is terrible too, so no judgment over here. I have Frida and Amanda for that.
Oh, that's wonderful, Frida and Amanda. It's being skippy on me. It was behaving better before, but you get the gist. There we go. Also, the Duralar is a little bit slicker than a paper. So, you get the hang of it. There we go. There. Okay, so that works. The next one we have is the bamboo pen. These are going to have a really different mark. This soft bamboo is going to almost feel like a marker a little bit. You can almost hear it. The marks are not going to be as clean. They're going to be more gestural. The fiber of the bamboo, it just, it's going to translate that mark a little differently, but also really exciting. Refillable markers. These are so easy and wonderful to use with high flow because, it is a slower drying paint. It's going to be fine in here if you keep it capped. It's, good in an airbrush, it's going to be good in a marker. You don't want anything that, dries up too quickly in these markers. So, if we use one of our other paint lines, we have some suggested formulas or recipes for slowing down their drying time, but this guy's ready to go. These guys are easy. You just simply, Emmy, I'm sure you have multiple options for refillable markers, but they all work basically the same way. You have a couple of little glass balls in here, which are important for high flow because you need to, mix that pigment. Like I said in the beginning, it'll settle in, and that's okay with high flow. The pigments are heavier than the binder. You just need to mix it again. But I have these little guys, put those in there, fill it with the paint, put the stopper in, screw it tight. Okay, you pull
So
off
just
the
paint,
cap.
not mixing it with a bunch of
No, just
anything.
paint. Yep, right away, just straight up paint. You can add medium to it if you want, the high flow medium, if you want to extend your paint. If you want to create transparencies, you can actually add a lot more high flow medium and create like glazes in your pens, but really it's fine by itself. So once you put that paint in there, you just, hold that nib down, pump it a few times, and you'll start to see it flow through. It's the same with all the different types of pens. So I have one here, and this is a nice broad pen. And I'll just show you, it makes these really great marks. Now keep in mind, I can do this on the upper layers of my painting. I could be drawing within my painting, which is super exciting to me. The next you'll see a lot of folks drawing will use little fine brushes. This is just a little liner brush. And you can get really nice drawn lines. So if I'm doing any cartooning or any detail work, any illustration, that works great. That liner will just hold enough paint to keep the line going a little longer than just a typical round. This is just a quill drawing pen. Wonderful with high flow. It's going to prove me wrong now because we're live. There we go. Great for cross hatching. There we go. Illustration, if you really like to draw with a pen and ink, you'll have all these colors at your disposal. So that's another nice mark. This is another refillable marker. This one just has an angled tip. So for you folks out there that like to do lettering, this is another option. My calligraphers and my lettering folks. Works great. And then this one is a fine line applicator. That's what this mark is right here. Also a favorite of some of the folks around here because it's unique. We have just basically, oops, sorry, I had a little drop there. This sits on top, it feels like. I'm squeezing out a long bead or a long line of paint. It feels a little bit like I'm, frosting, adding, very fine line of like a cake decorator or something is just oozing out of this point. You have to get the little stopper back in there to get it closed, and then your paint should keep fine because it doesn't dry up on you if this is nice and tight.
Now that was one of my questions is for the nibs and things that you use, like the dip pens and everything, cleanup wise, you can't just let those sit, correct?
So I just off camera, I have them in water and they're metal and they'll rust. So what you want to do is just clean them right away. If they happen to get, you notice I didn't use a rapidograph or something that's really hard to clean. Those dip pens, I can take some rubbing alcohol and I can get any like sticky paint that happens to maybe build up on them off. But you do want to wash them with soap and water quickly. Anything that, metal, acrylic will bind to metal, certain metals, and if you let it sit on the pen, it will bond. You want to wash it off. Same with
also if you let it sit in water, that's never good.
Yeah, if you let it sit in water, just be quick. Like I'll clean it tonight and we'll be all right. So we're thinking about illustration and painting. There's ways to use some of these materials that can be a lot of fun. Just for the heck of it, I made this as a demo. It's not you guys, it's demo, it's not art tonight. But just thinking about the possibilities with high flow and illustration and sequence, you know, if it sticks to, if it bonds to a material like this that is semi-translucent, I can use this to set up the next painting or drawing as I go through it. So that's
cute. Like a little, like almost stop animation kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
All right, so we got to keep going, Emmy. I'm going to clock through here. So back to lettering, I'm just going to show you really quickly some more ways that high flow can be a benefit, and then we'll keep moving. So before I get into iridescence, I'm just going to show you very quickly some of these. You know, if you're at the art supply store and you don't know if these brushes are going to work with acrylic, they are natural hair brushes, so acrylic will tear them up if you're not careful. But these things like the sword or dagger brush will work with high flow because of the viscosity. These liner brushes, so if you're into pinstriping and things like that, which I don't know if you've gotten into those videos, Emmy, but it can take hours of your time, so be careful.
I haven't done it yet. I know myself. There's a reason why.
The art supply store, and you're like, what the heck is that for? I'm going to show you right here. I can get a long line that keeps on going, and I can build up, you know, my design using like pinstriping, or I could create long loops and angles. If you like to paint trees, this is a really great way to move. So this is again showing you that viscosity and some of the ways that you can work that's really sort of outside what is maybe the standard.
How cool.
So let's talk shiny stuff.
I like shiny. Like shiny here.
All right. So iridescence. Okay, so we added some new iridescent colors and interference colors, which is really, you know, the shiny, yummy bits. And I can't wait to show you. It's like a magic trick. The iridescent mica-based colors are just fabulous. I mean, look at this. Pow, right? Whoa. We have the so pretty. We have three new iridescent colors. We have the bright gold, we have the gold deep, and then we have the bronze. And we're going to play with the bronze tonight. So I just wanted to show you these right off the bat. They're really, really lovely. The bronze that we have, let's see here in the high flow, you'll notice it will start to separate. When it separates, I don't see it here, you'll see that there's actually like a greenish color in here and then the metal on the bottom. It is a phthalo green that we mix with the gold to get this bronze effect. And it does some really magical things. It's a beautiful, beautiful color. And I'm actually going to put some out on this.
Ooh,
so this actually has the new high flow fluorescent underneath. It has some of the new high flow Mars black with a little water getting this cool effect. This is a heavy body yellow ochre with the high flow. Remember, thin over thick. I can do that with acrylics. The high flow on top of that's in the light phthalo. And now I'm going to hit this with some iridescent bronze in here. And I'm going to dilute that with some water to see if I can start to push out some of that green for you to see. Todd, could you zoom in like right in here?
Ooh, yeah, now we're getting some green
starting to push out. Now that'll dry and you'll see that green actually in your painting. So it's a really fun, lovely way to use this. When I saw this for the first time, I was kind of wowed, and I use it all the time. So it's a wonderful way to kind of create a patina in the work. If you're into that, it's a really special aspect of this paint. The other thing I want to show you is over here. I have some little dots. They look like white. This is actually a drip of the interference blue. This is an unusual paint. It looks like nothing until you turn it and you see that little shimmer of blue. If I'm using this over a white surface, what I'm going to see is kind of a warm, I want to say almost the complement of that blue. in the transparent layer. So it'll look like a warm glaze of almost nothing. But then when I hit that over those black lines, or I change the position of my head, I see that blue pop out, that interference of blue. It's beautiful. So over this, where I have a lighter mark and a darker mark, I'm going to show you how that would work in a glaze. And then we're going to keep moving because I know we're a little bit over time.
No, we're actually not over time
We're
yet.
good? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. We're getting close, Sammy?
Mm-hmm. A little close, but yeah,
Close.
that's okay.
Right. Keep hustling. Keep hustling.
You brought out the shiny stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I got shiny stuff, so we're good. So we have two interference colors. We have a gold and a blue. And you can see I'm putting it on pretty thin so that I can show you here how that'll shimmer. As that binder starts to dry, this will actually deepen a little bit because that binder is a little bit white, but it's a pretty thin. Let's see.
So pretty.
Am I seeing it, Tom?
We're seeing it.
There we go. There it is. There it is, Emmy.
Yes.
There it is. How beautiful that is. So this is an interesting addition to a painting because depending on what angle you're viewing the painting, you're going to see a different color. So, it really becomes that whole aspect of viewing the painting evolves as you move through space, which is a really, really neat effect. So, and here I made a mess. So please forgive.
An art mess, which is the best mess.
Art mess. So just to show you again really quickly how these things interact, I'm just going to really do just a mess on here so you can have some fun seeing the high flow move through the different cracks. But this is crackle paste with just one drop of high flow fluorescent orange in it. This is light molding paste with a tiny bit of the neutral gray. This is the light molding paste in a thicker application with some blue. We have I think this one was the Pyro Red Medium with clear granular gel, fluorescent So Flat, which is a matte acrylic again from the beginning. And then this is just some heavy body. So I'm going to take this interference gold and put it out here, or not. I'm going to take the bronze, also show that to you in here so you can see it go in all these little cracks. Sometimes the tip of the paint will dry, and the container will dry and you have to pick that off. All right. So here's the gold. This is the interference color. Again, it looks like white. As soon as you get it over that dark color, you see that gold come up. But then over the other colors, it's very minimal, the effect. So you can mix it with dark colors as well. And it'll do a similar thing. Let me see if I have any here. So really quickly. You can see that shine in that blue that I just added. That's from the interference color. It looks kind of like, there you go. See the gold?
Ooh, yes.
So when it's down here, I see nothing. As soon as I do this, I see the gold. So when it dries and it clarifies, you're really going to get that effect of that gold shimmer.
That's going to be so pretty. I want to figure out how to put that on my hair, but I don't think that's going to be a very well received thing. I just want my hair to shimmer like that.
You want your hair to shimmer like that?
Yeah.
Me too.
All the things, but I'm going to stick it to the canvas and all the surfaces and not my hair, because that's not a great idea.
I don't think they've made a metallic hair dye yet, have they?
I know. One day.
One day. So anyway, I wanted to show you how the high flow will interact with these different textures, but unfortunately the bottle that I had here, the cap just broke on me, so we're going to move on. When it's live, you got to keep moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Airbrush. I have such a pile for you here. This is so exciting.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is something I'm not incredibly familiar with. Airbrushing, and I have not had a great history. So I'm excited to see somebody who knows what they're doing.
Well, I'm just teaching myself now, but I tell you what, our material specialist in the chat, he's our pro. He actually taught me. He's our resident airbrush pro, so he can answer all the questions. I decided for this one to actually use our three primaries. We have a primary cyan, a primary yellow, and a primary magenta. And you know what's really wonderful about these colors is this triad palette can give you a ton of range. So if you wanted to just start with three and go from there, this is a great place to start. I had a little too much fun with this one. I wanted to just do some really quick color theory with you guys to show you the possibilities with these colors. This one's from a quick demo that Kevin did a little while ago. And what I loved about this is just, it was so simple. You just pulled the paint out and you got these beautiful mixtures of violet. They're going to be clean mixes. So you're going to get really lovely mixtures. They're also translucent colors. So you actually can build color through glazes, through those transparencies. So I can start thinking in terms of almost like light, like I'm building with light. So I did make some transparencies just to show that, you know, if I had my yellow here first, and then I layered my red on top, you can see how that red over here with a white is very cool, but then it warms up to almost an orange. And then I could layer my cyan, my blue here. And there are points where, depending on the film density, you know, you start to see it neutralize. That's the intent, is that these can be mixed. I can get beautiful oranges, greens, and then all together they will neutralize. And I did a neutral mix here. It's leaning a little towards green. That's just me. If I kept fussing with that, you know, I get a pretty nice gray. I can get pretty dark and you get very close to a very well-balanced neutral. The intent was that we could do that. We have a little white here and I mixed a gray. So it's got a lot of range, this palette. And for if you're doing airbrush, you have this opportunity to really layer color and get, you know, a huge amount of mixtures just by using those transparencies to your benefit. So the nice thing about high flow is you see this being filled, you just can put the paint right straight away into the airbrush and just get going. So just fill your well, pull it back and go.
And you don't need any additional mediums mixed in or anything.
Correct. With high flow, correct. Yeah. If you're using fluids, that's a different story. With high flow, that's it.
High flow is good, fluids not so much.
Well, fluids you can use it. You just have to, yeah, you just have to use some additions to make it slow down so you don't get your gun all clogged. So, you know, here's an example using that palette and some airbrush.
That is lovely. Look at those colors. How beautiful.
All right, last but not least, Emmy, our fluorescents.
Yay!
We are adding 3 fluorescents to this family of colors on our high flow family of, what do we have here? 86? 86 colors now. Keep track of that. I want all 86. I don't think I have maybe 46 of them yet. So got to get on that. So this is just to show you that the fluorescents are actually quite transparent. If you want to build up brightness with fluorescence, you want to set it up with some white behind it. We did a swatch out here on the black, and that was a pretty generous amount, and you can still see the black through it. Beautiful though, if that's the effect you're after. Fluorescence, you know, most of our pigments, we take pride in that we use the finest pigments, and our light fastness ratings are always on the excellent to very good end of the spectrum there, but we make the exception now and then for colors that we know people want. Fluorescents, there's just no way around it. They have poor light fastness because they're a dye. You can use a UVLS protecting varnish to minimize that, but if you do that, they're no longer going to fluoresce. They are truly fluorescents in the sense that they are going to fluoresce, and we're going to show you that in a minute. I'll paint these out just so you can see on watercolor paper, which is very absorbent. So you see it like sinking right into that watercolor paper. The degree of transparency that they do have. On a less absorbent surface, I would be pulling this a lot longer, but this is just sinking right into that watercolor paper, which is nice actually. So that's the fluorescent orange, and I also have fluorescent pink and a fluorescent violet. Do you have a favorite, Emmy?
I don't want to play favorites because I want to use them all. I mean, you're literally using the colors of my hair right now. I'm very happy. I want them all.
Well, I thought that's why I asked.
No, I actually
Oh,
just
I said, what did I say? Pink? It's magenta. My apologies. I got corrected. Yes, we have pink already. This is magenta. It's much, richer.
Yes.
It's getting late. All right, there we go. I have a surprise now. This is fun. Okay, we don't make fluorescents. Again, we could add UVLS in here and make them a little less, light fast, give them a little bit more light fastness, but why do that when you can have them fluoresce? So here we go. We are going to show you their magic. Woo! Look at that. That is so beautiful.
Amazing.
Look at that's the money shot.
That is incredible. It's really, really amazing how much light that can really give off. Isn't just by cool? A black crazy.
I went to an art show at a print shop where they actually made wallpapers the artist had created, and they had printed with fluorescence these wallpapers, and you walk into the room and the whole room is glowing. There's so much creative potential with all of these things. I could airbrush this. Oh my gosh, right? I could use pens. I could draw. This is just super exciting.
Oh yeah.
All right. So that was so much fun.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for showing us all of this. Now let me pop it back on the screen. I need to remove that. There we go. I remember how to do it. All right. Now I just wanted to make sure. I don't think we had any questions that I fully missed. But if we did actually miss any of your guys' questions that were in the chat, I always make sure to go back and check them. Even if you're watching this in the future and you have a question that was not addressed here, pop it in the chat. I will always double check, and I can always reach back out to Stacy and make sure to get a really good answer for you guys. But thank you so much for the show. That was incredible. I love the high flow acrylics.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun to prepare. And I just want everyone to know that if they have any technical questions or have any questions about what we discussed today, they can always reach out to us at help@goldenpaints.com. My wonderful tech team is there to answer questions, and they'll pick up anything I missed. It's a lot to go through in one session. So I'm sure there are things that you might have questions about. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Now, can you put that, sorry, one more time, that banner at the bottom of your screen? I just wanted to make you a little bit bigger. There you go. There's the phone number and the help@goldenpaints.com written out for you guys. Just wanted to make sure that was visible. But thank you so much. That was the show, guys. Emmy. Yes. And make sure you guys do join me next week, because we have our annual gift guide show, and I'm very excited about this. I have a lot of my favorites coming out, so you guys better join me, and I will see you next week. And have a great night. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye, Emmy. Bye, everybody.